right, let's start. Ajnana timirandasya Jnananjana shalakaya chakshunamanitanjena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Binedus Tam Savabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptascha Kamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanda Brinde Namaste Charanarvindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nayanam Charanandike Vancha Kalpatarupascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So we will begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada, and Sri Guru Pada Padma Nityalita Bhavishta, Om Vishnupad Asto Tarasat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, under our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga, and to all the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So today is Shivaratri, celebrated all over the world, and in India, very widespread, opulent, wonderful, although there are so many different conceptions and ideas about Lord Shiva. The Siva Tattva, the philosophical considerations about Lord Shiva, his identity, it's very vast and very complicated and really not completely comprehensible in the conditioned state. But we're going to read a beautiful lecture given by Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj. He gave so many lectures, and there's so many things to draw from, but this one touches on many different aspects of Lord Shiva. And you know what? Tomorrow we may do this again. It's very important to understand this tattva. Very important. And just so that we know, in India, generally they say, well, this is the marriage day of Shiva and Parvati. Okay. But that's a very limited understanding. And now, who is Shiva? Who is Parvati, right? Anyway, so this is, I don't know if we'll be able to finish this lecture or not, but I'm going to read it. And maybe time to time pause a little bit and say something. But regarding Lord Shiva, there are three considerations, or vichars, from which to understand the relationship between Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva. Why is he saying that? Because many people in India and followers of Vedic conceptions, they believe Lord Shiva to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He certainly exercises a predominant role within this material universe, and there are pastimes even where Lord Krishna, Lord Ram are worshiping him. But he's going to explain that. So 3 ways to understand, 3 considerations. The first one is called Tattva Gata Vichar, the consideration of the relationship between Lord Krishna and Lord Shiva by established philosophical truth. In other words, that would be evidence of the Vedas and the means of understanding it. Another is called Aishvaryagata Vichar, the consideration of their relationship in the Supreme Lord's pastimes of majesty. Right? Krishna has pastimes of majesty in Dwarka, but also as the Lord of Vaikuntha. Right? And the third is Naravat Gata Vichar, the consideration of the relationship in the Supreme Lord's sweet human-like pastimes. And those, when we talk about sweet human-like pastimes, generally mean the pastimes in Vrindavan. And Lord Shiva certainly has relationships and pastimes with Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, as well as with his devotees. And some of Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka are also Naravat Leela. He manifests himself as the Supreme Lord there, but sometimes he does pastimes, as did Lord Ram, to teach Maryad and proper conduct. So, Srila Narayana Maharaj goes on. According to philosophical truth, Tattva, Sri Krishna's plenary portion is Sadashiv, and Sadashiva's partial manifestation is Lord Shiva. In the Brahma Samhita, there's a description of the different levels of existence or creation. There's the material creation, and then above that, it's the realm, beyond the Brahmajyoti and the Raja River and the Brahmajyoti, is the realm of Sadashiva, who's Vishnu Tattva, special form of Vishnu Tattva, and he has his own realm there and his devotees. And then there is the Vaikuntha planets and then Goloka Vrindavan. And there is a partial manifestation of that Sadashiva that we know as Lord Shiva in this realm. I believe that will be discussed a little bit later. From the perspective of Lord Krishna's pastimes in opulence and majesty, Aishvarya, Lord Krishna is Shiva's worshipful deity who is always loved, honored, and respected by him. However, in Naravat Gata Vichar, Krishna plays another role, that of an ordinary human being. He performs pastimes as a very young, small child who cannot do anything independently. His mother, Srimati Jashoda Devi, feeds him and tends to all his needs. During these human-like pastimes, Lord Shiva might come and give him benedictions. In the scriptures called the Puranas, it is a child. It is stated that when Krishna resided in Dwarka, he worshipped Shiva to beget a child from the womb of his wife, Jambavati. Although Shiva is worshipped by Krishna in those pastimes, he never thinks himself superior. He is always conscious that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that he is Krishna's eternal servant. It is essential to have a clear understanding of these truths. One who knows these three perspectives or considerations, vichars, right, can understand the relationship between Lord Shiva and his Lord. Because it can get confusing, because in Krishna's Leela, he has different pastimes with Lord Shiva, and sometimes they appear to be opposed to one another. Lord Krishna may be fighting with one of the demons who sought benedictions from Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva may take the side of that demon in order to give Krishna an even greater battle, right? But this is going to be explained later. Why, if Lord Shiva is such a great devotee, why would he engage in fighting with the Lord? Huh? Why would he do that? Anyway, it's very beautiful. So, According to the principle of philosophical truth, Lord Shiva is a partial manifestation of Sri Krishna's plenary expansion, Sadashiva. When Krishna desires to create, he expands himself as Maha Sankarshan, and possessing this creative desire, Sankarshan expands as Mahavishnu, Karnadakshaya Vishnu. Mahavishnu then desires to create, and his desire takes the form of a light that emanates from between his eyebrows. The semblance or dim twilight reflection of that light is called Shambhu Linga, Shiva. Many people worship Lord Shiva in the form of Shambhu Linga. The light itself is eternal and is not Shambhu Linga. Shambhu Linga is its semblance or shadow. There is another semblance called Joni, and this is the shadow of Ramadevi. Ramadevi is the spiritual potency of Mahavishnu. And in Vaikuntha, she is Lord Narayan's beloved consort, Lakshmi Devi. This is her original transcendental form, and her shadow is the limited conceiving potency, Joni. Right. So, essentially, what is the source of this desire for creation? It originally comes from Lord Krishna himself. His first expansion, Lord Balaram, is the source of through his Shakti, through all the inhabitants of Vrindavan, all the forms, even the forms of Krishna, and all the devotees. This all comes from the Sandhini Shakti, right? The self-conception, the identity of oneself, one's knowledge, one's relationship. This is Krishna's Samvit Shakti. And the pleasure potency is the Ladini Shakti. Radhika is the predominating deity of Ladini Shakti, Krishna the predominating deity of Samvit Shakti, and Baladev the predominating deity of Sandhini. But from Baladev comes the first Chaturvyuha, which is the expansions in Dwarka, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Baladev there, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, and from that Sankarshan comes the second Chaturvyuha in Vaikuntha, same names, Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from that form, that Sankarshan, comes the entire Vaikuntha realm, all the planets, all the incarnations, all the different forms of the Lord. So the creative desire is there within, but in order to create the material world, a special expansion has to come. And those are called the Purusha avatars, Karnadakshaya Vishnu, right? The first of the Purusha avatars. And within him is the desire for creation, but that special creation, the material universes, and actually the entire material creation. So for that, he doesn't directly do that either, because the Supreme Lord never directly touches anything in the material world. And so for that purpose of creation, a special form of his own expansion, not the expansion of Karnadakshaya Vishnu, but this expansion, Sadashiva, has his own expansion, which comes through Mahavishnu. And when Mahavishnu desires to create, this effulgence comes from his glance, and a semblance of this glance is known as Shambhu. And this is a semblance of Sadashiv, a semblance because Sadashiv and Karnadakshaya Vishnu, all the expansions of the Lord are non-different in one sense, right? That Shambhu is a reflection, dim reflection, of that gland. So in other words, that Shambhu, that form of Lord Shiva, carries the creative potency. And this is described in a lot of detail in the Brahma Samhita. We may read that tomorrow, because it's very technical, all the different things that happen. And just as he's a special form of Lord Vishnu that has the role of creation in the material universe, Ramadevi, the Shakti of Lord Vishnu, of Karnadakshaya Vishnu, she has her own expansion as Parvati. And so Shambhu is the linga, it carries the creative desire, and he impregnates that into Yoni, Parvati, who is like the womb, the womb of creation. So this is going to be explained. Mahavishnu has two types of potency with which he creates the material worlds. One type of potency is called nimitta, the instrumental cause of creation, and the other is called upadana, the ingredient cause. Instrumental and ingredient causes can be explained in this way. Suppose I say, I killed a snake with a stick. The person who desired and performed the activity is the instrumental cause, nimitta, and the stick is the ingredient cause, the upadan. In another example, a potter makes a pot. The desire or will of the potter to make the pot is the instrumental cause. The sum total of all the instruments used to create it, like the wheel, the clay, the mud, and water, is the ingredient cause. Mahavishnu's eternal instrumental potency takes, so that eternal instrumental potency for creation is existing in Sankarshan in the Vaikuntha planets, and Sankarshan in Dwarka in Baladev, right? All coming originally from Krishna. And it's all for what? It's all for Leela. It's all for Ras. It's all for loving pastimes, which is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, Mahavishnu's eternal instrumental potency takes its reflected form as Yoni, the limited shadow potency. And the ingredient cause assumes the reflection form of Shambhu Linga. Creation then takes place by the union of Shambhu Linga and his female consort, Joni. Shambhu is called the Linga of the Supreme Lord, which means that he is the manifest symbol of the Lord's male generative capacity, and he appears for the purpose of preparing the cosmic manifestation. That potency, which gives birth to the material creation, is the energy called Maya, and her intrinsic form is Yoni. So just as with Krishna, he has Icha, or desire, and Radhika is the instrument for the fulfillment of that desire, the Shakti that fulfills his desire, right? So in the same way, in the reflected way, Lord Shiva carries the desire for creation, and the potency for creation exists within the expansion of Ramadevi, who is Mahamaya, or Yoni. And Lord Shiva carries that generative potency, and by the union of Lord Shiva and his potency, then she becomes both the instrumental and the ingredient cause, because by her energy, then everything manifests itself. The desire is transmitted into her, and then, because just like Radhika, what is her desire? Her desire is to fulfill Krishna's desire. They're non-different in one sense. So before material creation, everything is dormant. The yoni, the pradhan, is in a dormant state. But Lord Shiva carries the generative potency, the desire for creation, because he is also known as the time factor, the material time factor. So when they meet, the time for creation is taking place, then her energy is responsible for all of that. So, Shambhu is called the Linga of the Supreme Lord, which means that he is the manifest symbol of the Lord's male generative capacity, and he appears for the purpose of preparing the cosmic manifestation. That potency which gives birth to the material creation is the energy called Maya, and her intrinsic form is Yoni, like the womb of everything, right? Actually, the original instrumental and ingredient cause is not Yoni and Shambhu, it is Mahavishnu. Material nature as Yoni desires to create by dint of the Kam Bij, desire seed, impregnated in her, and she is therefore the secondary instrumental cause. The desire seed gave her the urge to create. Right? And because she then wanted to create, she is called the instrumental cause. Shambhu supplies the materials of creation, and he is therefore called the ingredient cause. Shambhu, the dim reflection of the Supreme Lord's own desire-filled glance, consummates his union with Joni. However, he can do nothing independent of the desire of Mahavishnu. And this identity, the nature of Shambhu, is described in, like I said, in the Brahma Samhita, very interesting way. Because in order to interact and be a part of that material creation, he has to be somewhat different. He has to be a special form that has that capacity, ability, desire, right? And so he's called non-different from the Lord, just like yogurt is non-different from milk. Right? What is yogurt? Yogurt is a transformation of milk. So on the one hand, it's not any different from milk because it comes from milk, but on the other hand, it is different. Milk can become yogurt, but yogurt can't go back and become milk. It's a transformation. So it's given in as an example. The Lord himself actually does not transform. He's eternally the same. But this Shambhu is a special form of the Lord, a mixture of all these different aspects, which we'll hear about tomorrow. The self-conception of the Purusha, a portion of Jiva Tattva, a portion of Ladini Shakti, a touch of Tamagu, and so many different ingredients. We'll hear about that. So, Mahavishnu is the supreme personified will, and it is he who brings about the union of the two, Joni and Shambhu. He is the divine dominating person, the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, and the creator of the mundane world. In order for creation to take place, there must be the desire of the supreme doer. He must be present. The instrumental cause and ingredient cause must be mixed with the desire or glance of Mahavishnu. So this is why Mahavishnu is considered the creator of all the material universe. It's by his desire and by his energy, his own potency, Ramadevi, that this takes place, but through his agents, right? So, the initial form of the creation is Mahat Tattva, the sum total 24 elements, right? The pradhan is immediately is initially unmanifest, but when it becomes first manifest as the Mahatattva, so what is that? 5 elements, like 5 sense objects, 5 organs of sense perception, 5 working senses, that's 20. Then mind, intelligence, false ego. And then sometimes it's said the pradhan itself, the Mahatattva itself, and sometimes it's said the chitta, or the most subtle form of consciousness. In the 11th canto, Uddhava asks Krishna a question, why is there, some sages say this many elements, some say that many elements. Krishna says, well, everybody understands material creation based on their own perception, and I give them the intelligence to understand in different ways according to their eligibility. And when somebody becomes finally realized with me, then all these apparent differences become reconciled. So, according to our own authorities, the 24th element could be chitta, it could be the pradhan itself. Both are said, right? So, this Mahatattva is the reflection of the Kama Bij, the original desire seed in Goloka Vrindavan. The seed of amorous creative desire in Goloka is the embodiment of pure cognition. It is a prototype of the sex desire in this mundane world, though it is located far from it. The seed of the mundane sex desire is thus the perverted reflection of the seed of the original creative desire in Goloka Vrindavan. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada gives a beautiful lecture about that, explaining that what we perceive and what we are often, consumed with and controlled by, this desire for sex, this desire for union, this desire for creation, is a reflection, perverted reflection, of the original desire that goes all the way back to Goloka Vrindavan for Krishna to have transcendently pure, elegant, beautiful, loving pastimes with his eternal associates in Vrindavan, the Brajadevis, right? That's the highest, purest conception. And all the other forms of relationship with his friends, with his parents, with his servants, with all the animals and trees and birds and bees and in Vrindavan. This is the origin of everything. And what we're seeing here is a dim reflection of that, improperly or falsely self-directed towards our own bodies, which we take as ourself, and the satisfaction of the senses of the body, which we then think as our highest goal, right? But the Kama Bij originally comes from the spiritual world. And this Kama Bij gets carried in that reflected dim abhas form for the purpose of creating this material world. So, he's going to discuss service in pastimes of majesty, Aishvarya. So this is Lord Shiva and his service in that context. The historical narrations that follow are examples of Aishvarya Gata, Vichar, Lord Shiva's relationship with Krishna from the perspective of Krishna's majesty. Revealed in Srimad Bhagavatam, these transcendental histories demonstrate Lord Shiva's dependence on him. They also further reveal that when Shiva gives benedictions to Krishna's enemies, he does so to assist in the Supreme Lord's pastimes, which are performed for the benefit of all beings. So understand that everything that Lord Shiva does is in the service of the Lord. Even when it appears to uninformed vision that he's opposing the Lord. by supporting the enemies of the Lord in their attempts to fight and combat with Krishna. So, Srimad Bhagavatam tells of a demon named Vrikasura who desired to enjoy Lord Shiva's wife Parvati, who then performed severe austerities to please Lord Shiva. When Lord Shiva appeared before him to grant a benediction, Vrikasura expressed his desire that as soon as he would touch the head of anyone, that person's head would immediately split open and he would die. Right? So this is going to be a show of Lord Shiva's dependence on Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu. So Lord Shiva granted this benediction, and Vrikasura immediately rushed forward to use it against Lord Shiva. Shiva asked, "What are you doing?" And the demon replied, "Now I am applying my benediction." He did not say, "I want Parvati." He simply looked at Parvati and then ran towards Lord Shiva. Fearful, Shiva ran away, and Vrikasura immediately chased after him. Lord Shiva was attired in a deerskin which fell off, and then his drum also fell. He kept running, however, and he remembered his Lord. Who was the Lord he remembered? It was Sri Krishna. This is Aishwarya Gata Vichar. Lord Shiva fled from the land to the sky, and from the sky to other planets until he reached the limits of the universe. But Vrikasura continued to chase him. The predominating deities of the higher planets, such as Brahma, Indra, and Chandra, were not able to save him from the impending danger. And finally, he approached Krishna's incarnation, Lord Vishnu, in Svetadweep. This is the localized planet where Lord Vishnu resides, Kshirodakshai Vishnu. So, in order to protect his devotee, Lord Vishnu appeared as a perfect brahmachari, and the effulgence emanating from his body was attractive to both Shiva and the demon. So Lord Shiva runs by, and after a little bit of time, then Vrikasura following, he stops, seeing this beautiful brahmachari. And the brahmachari, the way he stopped him, he saw Vrikasura and he offered obeisance to him. And winning his confidence by speaking sweet and reassuring words, Lord Vishnu asked, "Why are you running after Shiva?" Vrikasura replied, "He has given me the benediction that when I put my hand on someone's head, it will split open. Now I will use the benediction on him." Lord Vishnu, in the dress of a brahmachari, said, "Oh, you are very foolish. You believe the benediction of this man who smokes ganja, takes all types of intoxication, and lives in crematoriums? Do you believe that he is authorized and powerful enough to give benedictions? His benediction will prove futile. He is just fooling you. We were running after him, but in the end, you will find that his benediction is ineffective. Try it on yourself. Put your hand on your head. You will see that nothing happens." Vrikasura agreed, yes, I will try. In this way, by Lord Vishnu's sweet words and by the expansion of his illusory energy, the demon became bewildered. He forgot the power of Lord Shiva and his benediction. He therefore put his hand on his own head, and it immediately split open. He therefore, and he died. This pastime gives evidence that Lord Shiva is not independent. His worshipable deity is Krishna. There's some end note there. Let's see. There's a footnote. I guess we'll go to that later. Now there's a little pastime which describes the Lord Sri Krishna as the benefactor of Lord Shiva. All the pastimes performed by Shiva are meant to teach everyone about Sri Krishna's supremacy and to inspire everyone to serve him and take shelter of him. The following history is another example of this. Okay. The demigods once fought with the demons and defeated them. The demons then took shelter of their leader, Mayadanava, who then prepared 3 mystic airplane-like residences for them. The demons thus began to vanquish all the planetary systems. All right, Mayadanava, he did so much for the demons. Remember that one time when the demons were fighting with the demigods, many were killed, but he took their bodies and dipped them into a special mystic pool that he had, and they were rejuvenated and given life again. He did so many things. But he also had received he had been rescued from the fire of the Indraprastha forest that Arjuna assisted Agnidev in burning up. This very bad forest. And Mayadanava was in there, and Arjuna had prevented anybody from escaping so that Agni could consume everything. And Mayadanava was in there, and he took shelter, and they protected him because of that. And he said, all right, whenever you want something, just call me. And so when it was time to build the beautiful palaces for the capital of Yudhishthira Maharaj in that place, no, it wasn't the Indraprastha forest, it was the Khandava forest. Right, Khandava forest. They went to Indraprastha, and he built them magnificent palace with opulences and beautiful, tricky things that surpassed anything even in Hastinapur, where Dhritarashtra was living. So, anyway, so Mayadanava created these really powerful flying cities, 3 of them. Thereafter, when the demons began to destroy the higher planetary systems, the rulers of these planets went to Lord Shiva, surrendered unto him, and said, Dear Lord, we demigods are about to be vanquished. Right? We are your followers. Kindly save us. Lord Shiva reassured them and said, Do not be afraid. He fixed his arrows to his bow and released them toward the 3 residences occupied by the demons, and all the demons were killed. The great mystic Mayadanava then dropped the bodies of the demons into a nectarian well he had created, making the demons return to life and become practically invincible. Lord Shiva became very worried. Seeing this, Lord Krishna, in his form as Lord Vishnu, considered how to help him destroy the demons. Lord Vishnu became a cow, and Lord Brahma became a calf. And they entered the residences and drank all the nectar in the well. Then by his personal potency of religion, knowledge, renunciation, opulence, austerity, education, and so on, Krishna equipped Lord Shiva with everything he needed for the battle. He manifested a chariot, a charioteer, a flag, horses, elephants, a bow, a shield, and arrows. And Lord Shiva sat down on the chariot to fight. He destroyed 3 residences of the demons, and the inhabitants of the higher planets glorified and worshipped him. And he became known as Tripurari, the annihilator of the 3 indwellings of the demons. So don't fear. Krishna will save you if you offer yourself to him. He himself has promised this in Bhagavad Gita. If you hand over your complete responsibility in life to him, not only your bodily maintenance, but your intelligence, your senses, and everything else you possess. He will take full care and responsibility for you. Don't fear. No suffering or sorrow of any kind will be able to touch you. Moreover, you will be able to enter the realm of bhakti and be happy forever. What a promise, eh? Doesn't mean that the devotees of Krishna are not put into awkward situations. They are. And sometimes when we question, well, why are we put into difficulty? We're devotees. But it's said that the great devotees are put into difficulty. And in which chapter is it? It's 15 or 16 when we're hearing about Dharma, the bull, in the first canto being tortured by Kali. And when Parikshit Maharaj asked him, who did this to you? He wouldn't say. He gave different reasons that some people say. Oh, one's karma, 3 modes of nature, different descriptions of why people might suffer. But he doesn't say anything directly that Kali did this. And then Parikshit Maharaj recognized that there was great wisdom in his statement. And he said, oh, because of your statements and your detachment and devotion, I can understand that you yourself are the personification of religion. You are a great, great devotee of Lord Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada says in his purports that when the devotees are put into difficulty by Krishna, this is done to show their greatness, right? Their glory. It's actually a form of glorification, like the Pandavas, all that they endured. But even though they were going through difficulty, what was the result of that? Because they were fully surrendered, not just by body, but by mind and heart, intelligence, everything, their happiness and distress was not based on whatever material circumstance they were in. It was based on their relationship of love with the Lord and their constant remembrance of Him. And even though a devotee does not want anything from the Lord directly, anya bilash, shunya, right, has no separate desire, still anya bilashita, sometimes under extraordinary circumstance, the devotee may appear to pray for something, like protection or whatever, because every part of their being is consumed in devotion to the Lord. So under extraordinary circumstances, like when the fire in Vrindavan threatened to consume the cowherd boys, oh, Krishna. They remember Krishna. When the Pandavas were in difficulty, when Draupadi was fearing the wrath of Durvas Muni, oh, Krishna. When she was being disrobed in the assembly, she folded her hands and prayed, and Krishna said, oh, I'm so indebted to Draupadi for that prayer she made. Why? She wasn't praying for herself, although it appears to be. She was actually praying that I am your great devotee, I am the wife of your devotee husbands, that if I am shamed in this way, it will be a terrible thing. Not for me, she's detached, but you always protect your devotees. So what will people think? So she prayed, and it was a prayer of such love and dependence that Krishna said, I am indebted because of that prayer. And the gopis also appeared to pray for their own fulfillment. Please fulfill the lusty desires in our heart. They don't have any lusty desires. They have lust, but what is their lust? To satisfy Krishna's desire. That's their desire. And Krishna, wanting to see the extent of their love, therefore they prayed in that way. Ordinarily, they would never pray like that, to openly show their love. But in this extreme condition, to show Krishna their love in the topmost way, they prayed like that. Right? And so he's saying that in our life also we may, and we do, experience our ups and downs, right? But the more we become surrendered, and I remember one time when I gave a class like that, I was leaving, the Bhakta Bandhav place and said, yes, devotee were put into difficulty time to time, but the devotee is always grateful because it causes them to remember Krishna. So I drove away in my little motor home and after that class, and then just as it was getting dark, my vehicle broke down on the side of a highway in the freezing cold in December, wouldn't move, no lights, no nothing. And I had to stand outside waiting for hours for help to come and laughing at myself giving this class. The devotee always sees everything as the mercy of the Lord, as an opportunity to remember. And so sitting there on the side, or standing there on the side of the road with my hand in my bead bag, saying, oh, Krishna, you're giving me an opportunity to remember and experience this somehow. I guess you have some plan. I'm your instrument. I don't have any realization. I don't have any joy in this pastime, but I am remembering you now and laughing at the irony of this. And it wasn't so bad. After a couple hours, the roadside assistance, they couldn't find anybody because it was Friday night on a weekend, and everything was closed, but some Russian company, these Russian guys, picked me up in their truck, and they took me to their place and said, oh, you can stay at our place, And I said, but I need to get my vehicle repaired, and they had a shop there as well that worked on the weekend, and nobody else did, and they were really nice people. And the one who was working on my van had been to New Vrindavan and seen the palace of gold. And we talked philosophy, and I gave him a Bhagavad Gita, and he was happy. So, everything has a purpose, right? So no suffering or sorrow of any kind will be able to touch you. Moreover, you will be able to enter the realm of bhakti and be happy forever. Shiva's worshipable deity. Further evidence of Lord Shiva's relationship with Krishna in the Supreme Lord's pastimes of majesty is found in the history of Aniruddha. Aniruddha is the grandson of Lord Krishna, and he wanted to marry the daughter of Banasura, a demoniac person who was a staunch devotee of Lord Shiva. By the blessings of Lord Shiva, Banasura had 1,000 arms, and he served Lord Shiva with all of them. He assisted Shiva's famous dancing by rhythmically beating drums with his 1,000 hands, and he thus received the benediction of protection from his enemies. Krishna was informed by Sri Narad that Banasura and his army had fought with and arrested Aniruddha for intimately meeting with Banasura's daughter Usha. Therefore, in order to save Aniruddha, he called upon his own army, the Jadu dynasty, and he advanced on Banasura's city. When Banasura saw Lord Krishna's army, he immediately ordered his men to fight. Lord Shiva arrived there at that time. But instead of praying to his Lord, Krishna, he apparently took the side of his own devotee, Banasura. He personally began fighting with Krishna as Banasura's commander-in-chief. He shot many weapons at Krishna, including his Pashupata Astra and his ultimate weapon, the Shiva Dvara. Shiva Dvara is the fiery heat that consumes the universe at the time of the ultimate pralaya, right? Destruction. But all of them failed. Why did they fail? What did Lord Narayan, or Krishna, I'm sorry, release to counteract that destructive fiery weapon? He released the Narayan Dvara, which was the personification of ultimate cold. Absolute zero, which sucks and takes all heat. And in the battle between the two, the Shiva drawer had to surrender to the Narayan drawer. We did that play in Brooklyn. I played Aniruddha, and then for the battle, I had to play Krishna because, hey, they looked alike. And I think Diana Param played the Shiva drawer. But Srila Prabhupada says in his Krishna book, to explain how it could defeat, he said, the heat you can somehow or other tolerate, but freezing cold nobody can stand, right? So, right, hot weather you can somehow or other endure, but the freezing cold, it just stops everything. Everything stops. So he took the side, and so during the battle, Banasura showered his weapons upon Sri Krishna with his 1,000 arms. Krishna then cut off his arms with his Sudarshan chakra, leaving him with only 4. Lord Shiva, finally realizing that he was helpless to save his devotee, surrendered to Lord Krishna and offered his heartfelt prayers. Right, this Banasura, he's taken shelter of me. I promised to protect him. Please forgive him. Right? So after hearing Shiva's prayers, Lord Krishna told him that because Banasura was the son of Bali Maharaj and the great-grandson of Prahlad Maharaj, and because he was favored by Lord Shiva himself, he would not only spare Banasura's life, but would give him immortality. Right. All the people in the dynasty of Prahlad Maharaj, they were benedicted by Lord Nrsingadev that they would become devotees. Banasura, by bad association, had become demoniac, being born in that kind of family anyway, but by the grace of the Lord, both Lord Shiva and Sri Krishna himself, then he was again transformed. So, then the next heading is Lord Shiva taking shelter. According to Srimad Bhagavatam and Skanda Purana, when Krishna resided in Dwarka, he often assumed his form as four-handed Vasudeva. In fact, he was famous there as such. At that time, there was a king named Pondraka who had attached 2 artificial arms on his body and declared, "Krishna is not the four-handed Vasudeva. I am that Vasudeva." He sent a messenger to Sri Krishna with the declaration, "Stop claiming to be four-handed Vasudeva. I am he." After Lord Krishna and his royal family laughed for a considerable time, the Lord sent a reply to the challenge and prepared to fight. The king of Kashi was a staunch devotee of Lord Shiva, and he took the side of Pondraka Vasudeva. He had previously received a benediction from Lord Shiva to be able to defeat Krishna in combat. But in this battle, he was not only defeated but killed. With the assistance of his Sudarshan chakra, Sri Krishna killed Pondraka. And by his arrows, he killed the king of Kashi. Having cut off the head of the king, he then arranged to throw it into the city of Kashi. The king had a son named Sudakshina, who was determined to avenge the death of his father. Sudakshina thus worshipped the Lord of Kashi, Vishwanath, Lord Shiva, who then instructed him to perform a special ritualistic ceremony that calls forth a fire demon for the purpose of killing one's enemy. Lord Shiva also sanctioned his ghostly companions to accompany the fire demon, and Dwarka then fell under attack. Krishna called for his Sudarshan chakra, which froze the demon and forced him to return to Kashi and destroy his creators. Moreover, following behind the demon, the Sudarshan chakra burned the entire city of Kashi. Right, because if you have the these tantric mystic powers by which these demons and other things can be created, if you throw a curse at someone, but for whatever reason, they're powerful enough to resist it, then it has to come back on you. And that's what happened. When we lived in South India, we heard many stories, even contemporary stories, that people who had been tantrically cursed but had the power to resist it, it went back on the person who sent it to them and created disastrous results in that person's life. Illness, sickness, even death. So Sudarshan Chakra burned the city to ashes. At that time, even Lord Shiva himself had to run from the city. Where his deerskin fell, he did not know. He also left his trident and everything else, including his wife, and quickly fled. He arrived at a place in Navadvip called Harihara Ketra, and there he took shelter of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Very amazing place. There's a deity there. Harihara, it's a combined form of Lord Vishnu and Lord Shiva, half white, half black deity. And Lord Shiva resides there. And anybody who dies there, he will come and whisper in their ear. And they will be freed from all the offenses or sins that may have committed, right? And be able to receive liberation. From Navadvip, and different kinds of liberation. Anyway, that will be described later. So, from Navadvip he went to Ekamra Kanana, now we know it's Bhubaneswar, near Puri, in Orissa, where he took shelter of Sri Krishna in his form as Lord Jagannath. This pastime is Aishwarya Gata Vichar, and it also reveals that the worshipable deity of Lord Shiva is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or Sri Krishna. And how does he serve him when Mahaprabhu appears? He appears as Advaitacharya, Sadashiva, Mahavishnu, right? He's described as both. And both are the source of the Lord Shiva of these pastimes. So, what's the next one? Service in human-like pastimes. Oops, do we have time here? Well, we'll read one more. Lord Ramachandra's worship of Lord Shiva is an example of Naravat Gata Vichar, a sweet human-like pastime. So here's where the Lord, appearing like a human, will serve Lord Shiva as his devotee. As stated earlier, Ram played the role of an ordinary human being who had to perform the difficult task of crossing the ocean to reach Lanka, and he worshipped Lord Shiva for the power to do this. Lord Ram established a linga of Rameshwara Mahadev and began worshipping him, thinking, by Lord Shiva's mercy, I can cross the sea. Actually, he was powerful enough to personally jump across the ocean in a second, but he was playing a role to inspire ordinary people. The common people present considered that Rameshwara Mahadev was in fact the Lord of Ram, and that was why his name was Rameshwara, Ram Ishvara, right? The demigods then appeared and declared, Rameshwara Mahadev and Ram are both the same. There is no difference between them. Both are Ishvara, both are God, the Supreme Lord. Ordinary people think only that Rameshwara is the Lord of Ram, but they are not intelligent. It is not like that. So the demigods reconciled it up to a point. But even though Lord Shiva is not different from the Lord, still he is different from the Lord. In what way? So at that moment, Lord Shiva manifested from the linga and said, no, try to understand this truth. Rameshwara means he whose Lord is Ram. Ram is my Lord. The pastimes of Lord Ram are found in Ramayana, Srimad Bhagavatam, the Puranas, and Ramcharitra Manasa. and they take place in a previous age called Treta Yuga. The demoniac king, King Ravan, had kidnapped Lord Ram's wife, Sita Devi, and had taken her to Lanka. Before Ram knew where Sita had been taken, he was weeping profusely, and Lakshman was trying to console him. The more Lakshman tried to pacify him, however, the more bitterly he wept. In this state of mind, he was beseeching the trees and creatures of the forest and even the Godavari River. He appealed to the trees of the Panjatavi forest. O Panjatavi, have you seen Sita? Where has she gone? O dear, have you seen Sita? O Godavari, have you seen my dear Sita? Why has she left me? Lord Ram became maddened from inconsolable grief. This is one of the specialties of Ram Leela. We begin to see, unique to all the other Leelas up to this time, the introduction of this much higher conception of prema, right? And between the Lord and his beloved devotees, and of course his eternal consort, Ram as Krishna, Sita's expansion of Radhika, the idea of prema and its two features of meeting and separation, and how separation creates such incredible transformations of prema. Before Lord Ram, this was never seen. I remember being in Jaipur in 2003 in the summer. Srila Narayana Maharaja went down to stay a week and go different places and give programs. And the last 3 nights we spent at a temple of Hanuman, and it was all Ram Bhaktas, and he told these pastimes. He told this pastime. But he imbued it with such incredible power and beauty, understanding, the actual nature of prema. No one had ever heard anything like this before, right? This exposition, as Ram Bhaktas. They knew Ram in Aishvarya Gata Vichar, right? As the Supreme Lord appearing as a human, but the descriptions of prema are generally not revealed in that same way with Lord Ram. It wasn't until Mahaprabhu came that the conception of prema was unveiled to this extent and revealed in this way. Right? So he lectured like that, and day after day, huge crowds began to come to hear this extraordinary thought, the tattva. So, Rasa Tattva, actually. So, now he's looking everywhere for his wife, Sita. At that time, Lord Shiva and his wife, Sati, came to Dandakaranya forest, where Lord Ram had been living with Sita and his brother, Lakshman, for 14 years, following the order of his father, King Dasharath. Shiva was thus present to witness Lord Ram's divine pastimes, and seeing them, he was moved. His heart melted. He offered full obeisance with all the limbs of his body touching the ground and glorified Ram. All these pastimes are so beautiful and marvelous that they will melt the heart of anyone who sees them. He then circumambulated the outer precincts of that area, weeping due to the transcendental emotions of grief and separation exhibited in his Lord's pastimes. Offering his final respects, Shiva was ready to return to Kailash when Sati asked him, "My dear husband, to whom are you offering obeisance?" Lord Shiva replied, "Sri Ram is my worshipful deity. I worship him always." Sati said, "I see that Ram is like an ordinary man weeping for his wife. Even I know where Sita is, but he does not know. Why is he grieving? He appears to be a weak person. Is he not strong enough to bring Sita back? He must be an ordinary man, not God. Why are you honoring him so?" "You are ignorant," Lord Shiva told his doubting wife. You do not understand that Ram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He told her that if she did not believe him, she could conduct a test of some sort to determine Sri Ram's position. Lord Shiva then rested under a banyan tree a little distant away, and Sati, by her inherent mystic power, changed to a form like Sita's. She went to the area where Sri Ram was piteously searching for Sita. She thought that if she would appear before Ram as Sita, he would come and embrace her in joyous relief, believing that he had found his wife. However, although she appeared before him again and again, he ignored her each time. He simply looked away. Finally, he said to her, "Mother, why are you roaming alone here in the forest? Where is your husband Shiva?" Sati became astonished and fearful, and wondered how Ram knew who she really was. She knelt in reverence, and at that time she no longer saw the trees, plants, wildlife of the forest as before. She saw Sita Ram everywhere and in everything. Wherever she looked in the forest, here and there and everywhere, she saw only Sita Ram, Sita Ram, Sita Ram. In this manner, Sri Ram showed Sati that he and Sita are eternally inseparable, that he is performing this dramatic pastime to captivate the minds of human beings by its remembrance, and that he is, in fact, the personality of Godhead. Right, because Ram Leela does captivate the minds. You know, what Gurudev would explain, that the dramatic troops would come to the villages all over India in previous times, his own village included. And for an entire week, they would perform these pastimes. And people would come to them, and even though they would weep at night, they would come again and again just so that they could weep more and more. Because this kind of weeping is very pleasurable. Weeping on behalf of Sita and Ram and all their trials and tribulations. It creates a special kind of sentiment. Yes, it's weeping. Yes, it's painful. But it's a semblance of the real transcendental emotion. And it brings people to devotion. Right? So, she reflected, "Sati, my husband is never ignorant. He was right and I was wrong." Rising to her feet, she saw that Ram was still standing there alone in the forest with Lakshman weeping. "Oh, Sita, where are you? Where are you?" Thus, reassuming her own form, she returned to the spot where Shiva was waiting under the banyan tree. He asked her, "Did you test him to see who he is?" Sati lied. "Most respected husband, I believed you, so there's no need to test him." Because she was ashamed, right? So she's trying to deceive her husband. Lord Shiva saw in a trance what had actually happened and silently vowed, "Sati has taken the form of Sita, my mother. Therefore, she is no longer my wife. She is now my mother, and from now on I will treat her as such." When he made this vow, the demigods at once showered flowers from heaven, and they praised him. "Oh, you have made a remarkable vow." Sati asked, "What vow did you make?" Shiva remained silent. The bona fide disciple always has faith in his self-realized guru. Lord Shiva was the guru of Sati, but she had not believed him when he told her that Ram is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If a disciple does not obey his Gurudev, his bhakti and spiritual life will diminish. If a disciple lies to his Gurudev, he again goes to hell. When Lord Shiva and Sati Devi returned to their cottage in Kailash, Shiva placed her seat facing him. In Vedic culture, a wife sits on the left side of her husband, and a mother, respected as guru, sits in front of her son, facing him. So Shiva then rearranged the seating, right? A disciple does not offer obeisance to his Gurudev from his Gurudev's right or left side, but always in front of him. A true disciple does not remain silent, but respectfully asks relevant questions of his Guru and serves him. He does not ask questions in a challenging mood, but rather to learn. As Bhagavad Gita 4:34, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Just try to understand the truth by approaching a spiritual master, inquire from him submissively, and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Lord Shiva entered a trance for thousands of years, and Sati felt severe separation from him. She thought, Shiva has left me. He is treating me like his mother because I took the form of Sita. As long as I am in this body, he will not accept me as his wife. So I will have to give up this body. So he then goes on to describe that pastime wherein her father, Daksha, holds a great yajna, invites all the demigods and all the prominent personalities, sages and everyone from all over the universe, but he doesn't invite Lord Shiva. Because, and there's a whole story how he felt that he was superior to Lord Shiva, and Lord Shiva had offended him previously at another yajna by not offering him respects. But although he is indeed the son-in-law of Daksha, and under ordinary conditions, son-in-law should offer respect to the father-in-law, he is also the chief of the demigods, and Daksha is simply a Prajapati, far less than Lord Shiva. So, at any rate, that whole pastime where Sati does give up her body because of the offense to her husband, Lord Shiva, and then she takes the form of Parvati later on to reunite with him. So we're going to have to stop here because it's getting late, and we can hear more of this tomorrow. Beautiful, beautiful subject matter. Okay. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.